you trace that into the blue, and blue again, you can trace the arc of blue, as we've described before, all the way from Socratic thinking through Platonic and Aristotelian logic, all the way through the ideas and the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and through to important seminal events, very quickly washing through time here, the Magna Carta representing a pivotal shift in the evolution of thought about the value of individual life. Again, the individuated journey, we said, was part of the green. The seeing that from the view of the whole was an important blue line. And these two, the blue and the green, they continue to interact throughout the millennia. And the story where we landed a couple of months ago was realizing that the world as we have known it, certainly largely the people that were born through the 20th century and lived into that, especially the period from 1945 to 1990, that was the blue universe, the blue world, where everything we've known about the academic institutions, geopolitical institutions, that was shaped by the blue impulse. And the broader appreciation of the blue potency, the blue impulse, was the intelligence stream that enabled people to work together, to collaborate, to build institutions that can regulate, and to also embrace the other blue impulses that would sometimes appear as conflicting impulses, such as freedom fighters, such as people who disagree with the system. And the blue we are describing in this represents both the conservative and the liberal impulses. These are two facets, two polarities of the same whole. And so what I was attending to over the last two weekends was what comes beyond that, and the beginning of the journey into the indigo climb on the mountain, which corresponds very much with what you are describing as the letting go of the grip of the both exterior and the interior structures that held humanity for a millennia. That journey is not easy and not pretty, and is very challenging for many people at the individual level, which, because it's easy to say letting go, as you're describing, of those egoic structures, but what we are describing when we talk about that, we are describing formations that are a product of that entire arc of development, in which those formations had an important function to enable us to come to this day and age and to this point. And so what I would simply say still with this bullet one, to land this bullet one and move into the rest of the bullets, is I have discovered that as we go deeper and deeper in the story, and every time I tell it and we tell it together as a collective from slightly different angles, there is both deepening and the novelty of new connections and appreciations and facets of understanding that appear inside the deepening. And that in itself has value and has important function in enabling the story, in that the consciousness of what unfolds and how we are part of an unfolding story is part of the meaning making and the release of what is enabled. And so that leads me to suggest that one of the realizations we've discovered over the last couple of months was that in order to unlock the indigo potential we need to deepen in the 4 zones of blue work. And we've done a significant amount of work in this weekend into deepening that any inquiry that shows up, we may choose to explore it more in the personal development arena, in the interior of what I want to be, what I want to become, and how I am practicing that in the sense of the character formation, the alignment practices, the prayer practices, the somatic awareness, all the full portfolio of practices that emerge in what we call zone 1 there, the personal development, and how we enable each other. Because the more, Jeff, I believe we see the collective organism you're describing, actually the greater the opportunity and responsibility for the individuated consciousness inside as a unit that contributes and co-creates, in that when you allow yourself to dissolve an objection or overcome and transcend a challenging element in your formation, when you do so, not only do you transmute and transform something in yourself, you potentially proffer the intelligence of that and the benefit of that.
So that's an extremely important point that I want to underscore and support with some specific examples from my own recent experience. So I've been aware since about 2015. That's why I say these ideas have been bubbling for a while, but back then it was more like I could see a small ship on the horizon that maybe would arrive in the future. But I've been aware that I can inhabit the individual and have the individual experience and seemingly make decisions that are at the individual level. And I'm also aware of the superorganism. So for me, humanity is not an abstraction. I can slip into the consciousness of the species and feel how the species is moving. That's one reason I say this with these things with a lot of confidence. Again, time will tell, but I really feel the truth of it in the ways that I know what I know. I get it's possible to operate on both levels and to consciously tune. It's like if you have a radio dial to tune to the superorganism or the individual, and then there are various in-between levels of collectivity. So as I've developed this capacity to be one with humanity, I've realized I have a significant responsibility, as you say, to choose wisely, because the choices I make contribute much, much more, because awareness is infinitely powerful, contribute much more than 1 in approximately 8 billion humans. It's not like what I do is a tiny fraction of human activity. The decisions that I make, and this isn't to puff myself up, this will be true of all of us as we dial into this awareness, have a seemingly outsized contribution to which way humanity goes. So for instance, I've had the opportunity to make big purchases, and I have chosen not to incur any debt because I realize the debt-based economy is one of the forms, one of the formations that has served admirably, I would say, but doesn't serve us well now. So if I were to continue to reinforce that that structure, it wouldn't serve. So I've chosen not to do that. I've chosen not to invest in crypto. And this, I don't want to sound like I'm opinionated, but when I tune into life, because life itself is another of these layers of collectivity, maybe a bigger one than humanity, I get Bitcoin not very aligned with how life is moving. It served, but its service is largely in the rearview mirror now. So if I were to buy Bitcoin or most of the other cryptocurrencies, some are more aligned than others, I get that is doing a disservice to the species and to life because it's not in alignment. So even though crypto encourages decentralization and some other good things, there will be a better solution. So I cannot, I want to say honor bound not to engage in certain activities because I'm encouraging the species to take a wrong turn if I do.
You are demonstrating a beautiful example of how you are doing zone 1 work inside zone 2, 3, and 4. And equally, it is critical and important to do zone 3 work inside zone 1, because what you're saying is, I recognize that I have the decisions I make, the way I navigate my cognition and the choices, the power afforded to me is a fractal of the whole, and hologrammically is reconfigured in the whole, and therefore you're saying, I choose to work in this zone through and in alignment with what I am discovering and what I'm seeing, the emergent truth of the evolutionary story and the need of the whole is, because I recognize that when I work in myself, I am actually working and impacting the world at large. And so you are giving yourself permission to make choices here in zone 1 while you plug in, you dock into the awareness of zone 2, 3, and 4. These are important dimensions of awareness. One of the elements we reflected on this weekend was that if you only traverse and base yourself in zone 1 and zone 2 without a search for external perception, without a search for truth, then you may find yourself inside, very quickly inside what can become one large mass hysteria. Too wound up with your own experiential and sense and felt subjective experience. So the remedy for intersubjective hysteria in zone 1 and 2 is solid zone 3 work.